Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here in person and each of you joining us online. We always appreciate you joining us each week for these life talks. Today we're continuing talking about the Four Agreements by Don Ruiz.
Yeah.
And JJ joined me this week to talk about the second agreement, which is to not take anything personally.
Yes.
And this is something I think people often are drawn to do. If somebody says something, automatically assuming that it relates to you, or automatically assuming it is you, or thinking that someone else's opinion matters.
Or it's an attack.
Exactly. And what I find time and time again, when people talk, whatever it is they're talking about, generally it's saying a lot more about them than it is about you.
Their mind space, their emotional state, what they think about a thing, what they think about themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. For example, people that tend to be afraid of others being judgmental tend to be pretty judgmental about themselves.
Absolutely. If they think that going down the road that every person is judging them, that's because they're judging people.
Others. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be in their mind.
Yep.
And sometimes people will feel like they're so afraid of seeming stupid, or they're afraid that people think that they're stupid, when they really are thinking that about a lot of other people.
Or about themselves.
And themselves.
And that's the sad part.
So much of life is actually a mirror. What we think, what we speak, what we say, are
what
reflections.
We react to.
Exactly. It's reflections of who we are.
And their reactions to situations is a reflection of who they are.
Exactly. Yes, and so often people tend to internalize these things.
Yes.
How often have you ever had something that someone said to you and you just kind of stewed about that? You thought about that. You laid in bed awake thinking, how could they say that? What did they mean? What else did they mean? What was behind that? And you may spin a story that has all of these threads woven through it that had nothing to do.
Obsessing on something.
Exactly.
I would have no idea what that was like. I've never obsessed on anything, ever.
Interesting. And sometimes when people emphatically say something, perhaps.
It's absolutely not true. It cannot be true. Okay, yeah, I do that a lot. Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
It's so important to reflect on and notice, what are the words that you speak to others, and what do you hear other people saying to you, and then really turning that into, what does that mean in your own head? So often I find, and this is an interesting paradigm, that people with really low self-esteem are the ones that come off with a very high ego.
Yes.
They may want to seem like they always know everything, or they knew before somebody else, or their opinion matters the most.
Because they have to compensate.
Exactly.
Yes,
they try to control other people because they're really feeling afraid within themselves. They don't feel confident.
They feel less.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we see this even in the psychology of people that are bullies. Usually, if you really get to understand and to know somebody that's a bully, they have some pretty negative self-talk that's going on in their own head.
They feel very small, so they try to make themselves big by bullying other people.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then those that are maybe bullied by that person believe the things that person said. And we see this far too often with social media and younger kids nowadays. I keep hearing about how, younger generations, bullying may have happened at school, but home was a safe place. And now
it's not, because it creeps in their phones and their laptops and all of the things that they spend their personal time doing is in one way or another attacking them, whether it's their self-esteem, whether it's their point of view of what the world is,
the clothes they wear,
everything,
the trips they're able to make.
Their emotional state is being attacked at every level, without even subconsciously.
Yes, and so often people are trying to compare and to be like someone else, or to live a certain dream that somebody else has, when none of that should matter at all with who you are. And it's about knowing who you are.
Well, and I have to say, so the agreement is to not take things personally, right?
Yes.
And so one of the big things where our first reaction to anything goes through our emotional state. And our emotional state, like if you've ever been in a situation and something suddenly comes out of your mouth and you say something and you go, oh, and you realize it didn't even pass through your thought process.
Yes.
That was an emotional thought you had that you then said. And your emotional states react before your conscious ever has a chance to even think about it, to even react, to process the information. You've already emotionally reacted to it. And the problem is when you do that you will always, you're reacting out of fear, anger, doubt, all of those things, and that's where you start to take things personally because you're reacting to them from an emotional state.
Yes.
So if somebody says something, if you can take 1 second, run what they said through your head, and realize if you can take the emotion out of what they said, which means the words are just that. It's a sentence of words that are relaying an idea. If you take the emotion out of it, almost nothing anybody says can be hurtful.
Yes.
Nothing anybody says can hurt you. Nothing anybody says, usually, what most people say when they say things and we get all upset about it, it wasn't even meant as an aggression. It wasn't meant as something to hurt you. It wasn't meant from that person. They were just in their head reacting using their emotional words, and they made a statement, and then we react to that emotional state with our own emotional state. So I mean, it's just it's a runaway train. And so the trick is first you have to learn to pause for just that split second. Yeah, you have to pause, because if you let the words come in, you'll let the reaction happen, and you think of that reaction as being correct or true or just allowing it to do whatever it wants in your emotional state, it will almost always be a negative reaction. But then when it comes to you, you pause, and then you run it through your logical mind as, okay, what are these words actually saying to me? And suddenly, it's not personal anymore. Suddenly, it's just a thought that was given to you by a person. And it's not this thing that has to hurt you or you have to obsess about or that you have to, navigate from an emotional state.
Yes, exactly. And even if it's something that was intended to hurt you,
Yes.
It is a poison that you need to not drink.
Yes.
When we pause, we are able to recognize that, see it as the poison that it is, and not take it into ourselves.
Yeah.
We see this sometimes with people even that are strangers. Perhaps someone is yelling at another driver. Perhaps we also see this, the same example in grade school kids where somebody says, "What, are you stupid? What do you not, are you not paying attention? Are you not noticing what's going on?" That same phrase happens to children. It happens to strangers that are passing by because somebody gets annoyed.
Or upset.
It happens when driving, so many things. But those phrases carry power, just as we talked about 2 weeks ago when we talked about being impeccable with your words.
Yeah.
Your words matter. Every word you speak matters. And it not only matters what you speak, it matters what you allow to come into yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to drink the words that other people are pouring out. You don't have to allow it into your cup. And by recognizing that what others are saying is a reflection of them, it is not about you, it takes the sting out of it. And you can then correct that within your own mind and say, I am not stupid. I do pay attention. I am worthy. I am whatever words you need to follow up with that, but recognizing that what was just said was not about you. Yeah. And the same thing we see in our personal relationships with people as well. Sometimes with closer family members or maybe people that are in your home or close friends. Perhaps somebody was having a bad day, or maybe they have a lot going on and they just haven't done much self-evaluation and healing within themselves.
Or their self-talk is that they're worried that people think that they don't have a very decent intellect, that they struggle to be, understood, or that they're afraid that they weren't educated enough, or whatever.
And hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So if somebody is hurt emotionally, then they are going to be inflicting that on others until they learn to heal that within themselves, which is exactly what brings us back to the point of it's not about you. You should not take it personally. If somebody says a whole bunch of angry things in an argument, those are things that give you big insight into what's going on within them, not who you are, not what you are, not what things are about with you. And in that same token, you can turn that around and notice when you're learning to be impeccable with your words. First, analyze and notice what things are you saying to other people, because that is going to show you the same thing as a mirror about yourself. When you listen to the words others speak, you're seeing a mirror of who they are. When you listen to your own words and what comes out of your mouth, how you speak, you're seeing a reflection of yourself. And it's a great way to be able to start doing that inventory within yourself. Often the words that you've had other people say to you, perhaps that did become poison that you drank and you started to believe it. Especially those messages that as you were growing up as a child, things that were said frequently to you, those get ingrained in the subconscious, and it can be hard to pull that out and to heal those wounds. And then if somebody says it to you as an adult, it's an immediate wound that is a trigger that opens up.
Well, and that's right. And you find out from yourself what your triggers are, because sometimes our own wounds sometimes are the hardest to see. They're the hardest to know what bothers me, because we spend all of our time trying to stay away from those things.
Yes.
And our brain is really good at going, no, we're fine with that. No, we're fine with that, when it's not. But that's where when someone is talking to you, your reaction, your immediate emotional reaction that you feel or have can tell you so much about what's important to you as well. And I don't think most people take that in. They're too busy emotionally reacting, and they're too busy putting up shields, and they're too busy trying to turn it around so that it isn't saying that to them. But it stands out. It's funny. It stands out if you lob something at somebody that isn't correlative. So if you've got someone that's, say, 6'2", and they're well built, and somebody comes up to them and goes, "You're so short and fat," and they just go, "Huh?" It doesn't mean anything, because they're not worried about that. But if they were very tall at a young age, and someone goes up and goes, "God, you walk so gangly," somebody that's real tall may be like, and now it affects them because it's an issue for them. So for ourselves, it's one of the things, that's a logical duh when you think of it. But if you step back and when somebody says something and you just go, "What? Oh my God," and you catch yourself, if you actually stop and reflect and look at yourself and you go, "Oh, wait a minute. Why did that bother me so much? I didn't think that was a trigger for me. I don't think I'm heavy, or I don't think I'm stupid, but I'm reacting to that. So maybe somewhere that is a trigger for me."
Exactly. It can be a gateway to see that mirror, to know what we need to heal, because so often it's easy to see in others. Yes, it feels like absolutely. It's easy to see what they need to heal, but it can be tricky to see ourselves. And oftentimes those things will be things that we think repeatedly need to heal in others. That person needs to heal their ego, and that person needs to heal their ego, and that person has a big ego. Maybe you need to look at what your ego is doing.
Because it's easier to see, because we are so quick to project our own issues onto other people.
Yes.
So if you see those issues in the people, you see everybody I know needs this thing fixed, you might want to really think hard about that for yourself.
Yes, it can be a great method for self-reflection to do that. And at the same time, really noticing what you're taking into yourself, what those triggers are, and starting to recognize that as emotional garbage that you don't want to eat. Really seeing that as either the poison or the emotional garbage. Why would you eat somebody else's emotional garbage?
You shouldn't.
But you shouldn't. But if you're shoveling food in very quickly, not noticing what you eat, then it comes in and it slows down your system and you start to believe it.
Yes.
And it starts to dim the light that you have, so you're not seeing it, so you're not shining that light bright. But when you pause, when you implement that pause every time, if you feel triggered, it doesn't matter what it is or who said it, let yourself pause. Take the emotion out and allow yourself to respond instead of just reacting.
Yeah.
It will change so much. Every single one of us has different beliefs about how the world should work, how we should operate, what we should think, what our political views are, what our family views are, how things should be done, why things should be done a certain way. If all of us have so many different views about that, then doesn't that mean there are many ways and many paths and many options for how all of those can work? So it's not up to us to try to force anyone else into our own belief system.
And vice versa.
And exactly, it is not up to them to change us. When you start to recognize that the power that comes from our words is very powerful if we're not paying attention. And that is the biggest key. When we're not paying attention, when we're not awake within our own lives, when you pay attention, then you can notice, what am I allowing to come in? What am I stopping from coming in? This is one of the same reasons why sometimes it's good not to watch the news. If you are somebody that stresses and worries, then perhaps you should turn the news off, because there is a lot of good going on in the world. And now you can even look up, what is the good that happened this week? Do a Google search for that and just get those positive stories. Feed that into yourself to lift yourself up. And remembering, if there are many paths and beliefs, why should one person's opinions hold any weight on who you are? In the same way that your opinion shouldn't have to be validated by someone else. Do what is right for you. And I think that will close us for this week. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week. We will see you next time. Please remember to visit our website, earthandskyscenter.com. We have lots of exciting things coming up and so much info on our website.
And info and so much stuff. It's amazing.
Yes. Check out the Dragon Fire Teachings section of the website. There's a lot of great stuff on there. Have a great week.
See you next week.